Hey everyone, Clef here for gametechtalk, and today we're diving into the dual screen madness that is the ONEXSUGAR, that console you dreamt of and knew no one would ever try building. Well, here it is. Actually, no, it's not, because the unit I had, a prototype, which is very important to mention, is no longer in my care as I had it on loan to produce today's review. As was shared with me, this is extremely close to final units, with audio and overall feel improving slightly by then. In short, I can get you 95% of the way there, and the 5% missing will only mean it'll be better. We'll break it all down. The two OLEDs, the hinge that flips like a transformer, everything. Specs, performance, surprises, and whether this thing's a gimmick, the future, or just a cool one-off. It's launching through Indiegogo on July 21st, so if you're watching this early, congrats, you're on the inside. Expect pre-order perks, two options for colors, black and white, and obviously, risk. Crowdfunding always comes with a little bit of it, but truth be told, ONEX player being behind this means your money is in good hands, back with confidence. Starting with the one thing that matters most, because if this was $1, everyone would get it. Well, it's not. It'll start at 600 USD. I have my opinions on price, but my goal is not to convince you, it's to give you all the information for you to come to your own conclusion, and if I did a good job, make sure to let me know in the comments by the end of the video. And let's get this out of the way. The ONEXSUGAR is weird, but it's the good kind of weird. It flips, it folds, it stands on its own like a clamshell laptop that doesn't traditionally clamshell, and yet it feels deliberate because it is. The form factor is best described as that one mad scientist device designed to do it all. It's weird to hold one, but so cool at the same time. It brims with potential. From my time with it, I observed at least 4 transformations. I've named them the 2DS style, the multitasker, the slab, and the others. I did say it was weird. Before dropping that measurement and weight chart, here's how it looks next to some familiar friends. It's chunkier than it looks in photos, but the footprint's actually smaller than you'd think, clocking at only 486 grams. You can toss it in a sling bag, but because it screens all around, I'd make sure it's well protected if you do. In comparison, a Switch OLED with Joy-Cons is around 420 grams. In short, it's easy to hold for long periods. The controls, my favorite part, they're on inches, they flip down depending on how you hold the device, and as you flip them, so will the button's value. This is the left stick, but if I flip it upside down, it's now the right stick. Even as you move the hinges, they'll still respond. You have full control over them in the software, which we'll address shortly, but as far as what's there, you have 2 sticks, both Hall effects, small in size, large in range. So if you're thinking, will they suck as much as Joy-Cons? Rest assured they are far better, incomparable even. 2 sets of 4-phase buttons, mechanical on each side, L1, L2, and R1 and R2, all 4 of the mechanical type, so no analog triggers there. Select, start, back that doubles down as home on long press, and a heart that brings up your Sugar console. There is a magnetic D-pad, and that's undoubtedly a part I didn't care for. Let me elaborate. I'm happy to use that split D-pad option. It works better and doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. The D-pad holds great thanks to many magnets, but it's too high, it gets in the way and makes pushing the buttons much less pleasant and responsive. I'm glad I got to try it, as it took that to understand why it's not for me. The great news is the buttons underneath are awesome. I won't cry if I lose the D-pad on my unit. Still, I think it's nice of them to include it for people to try, and who knows, maybe some people will prefer it that way. There are 2 buttons tucked under the hinges. I'm unsure if that'll be part of the final unit, but at the time being, they were perceived as same values in places where I could map them. You have 2 power buttons, as one may not always be available depending on the transformation, and the same for the volume, for which you have 2 buttons or a wheel. This way you'll always have access. Each sides have a haptic rumble motor, and since we're going over the device, we also have a microSD rated as UHS-1, which should be enough for most emulation needs, but huge file size ROMs may take longer to load. We also have a single USB-C rated for 3.2 Gen 2 speeds and capable of OTG and video out for XR, external monitor, and docking needs. It also comes equipped with a gyroscope sensor, a microphone only viable for DS and 3DS mic support because the quality is abysmal, and a light sensor under the 18 18:9 screen's bezel. Back to ergonomics, and very much the twist, pun intended, despite all the flipping and folding, it's actually comfortable. The weight is balanced, the grips are just right, and the joysticks, Hall effect with metal rings and an anti-skid contour that also serves as RGB, more RGB accents to the side and one to the back that tells you battery status at all times. But back to ergonomics, with how outlandish the ONEXSUGAR looks, one could think it would be weird to hold, but much like everything that feels over-engineered, so does the ergonomics. The impressive part is that the design language still manages to come through without feeling like it's compromised. For example, the 2DS shape holds tight and feels like it was built that way, as does the multitasker. It's a marvel, really. The one compromise here is aesthetics. Not that it's not pretty, it's just that it's so wildly different that it may not be everyone's preference. Assuming that the shell doesn't change, go black if you want to have two floating screens in the night, or go white if you want to know what you're looking at while playing it during nighttime. Under the hood, you're looking at Android 14 with a custom software called the Sugar Console. This isn't a reskin of something you've seen, it's an app that is specifically tailored for the ONEXSUGAR. It'll let you do all sorts of modifications, for example, shutting or opening a specific screen, swapping main and secondary between each panels, or even customizing blinds to match the aspect ratio. You know, for apps that don't support the 18:9, you have options for 16:9, 3:2, and 4:3. Now, the most important tool here is Fusion, but we'll get back to that as it's got its very own chapter during the review. To keep the rest simple, you'll have performance presets and adjustable fan speeds, adjustable RGBs, bypass charging options, mapping tools, and as described for the screens, you have the same level of flexibility for controls. Changing the layout, swapping your L1 and R1 with L and R2, calibrating your sticks, or even locking your inputs rather than having them switch when you flip the hinges. You also have a test input page and OTA upgrade feature, which I upgraded quite a few times during the time that I had it. These guys are really working on making this great. Something I forgot during the control portions, these shoulder buttons feel okay in slab mode, not as much in 2DS mode. Having the ability to swap them comes in clutch for games where you may want to prioritize them. Personally, I'll just default to the multitasker for those native Android FPS games. Okay, back to Fusion, and the main reason for many to entertain buying this: dual screen handheld emulation. It's not my first time dabbling with dual screen Android, as I had the Asus TwinView, but very few apps were designed to support dual screen, and the concept pretty much died with the TwinView. Well, the Fusion button is the solution to all that, but in ways I wouldn't have expected. First off, the Fusion button only works on apps whitelisted by the Sugar Console. Take Melon DS Android, for example, which is what I'm running right now. While an amazing emulator, it does not work with Fusion at the time of making this review. If I tap on it, that's what I get, as I would on any other incompatible app. If I do it on a supported app, it'll load a pre-made custom layout, and voila. The moment we've all been waiting for. And from there, when you open up your menu, for example, you'll notice it's perceived as if the bottom small screen was a continuation to the right of the top one. And that's how the magic is done. Quite clever, if you ask me, but I do wonder, how will people be able to add or remove apps in the future? For the time being, the two apps that I was able to use Fusion mode with were Citra for 3DS emulation and Drastic for DS emulation. Cemu could have been nice, but I don't think the Android build supports having the TV and gamepad screen both up simultaneously. Drop it in the comments if you know something I don't. And before ditching software, screen mapping is built in. It's a pretty nice implementation with various modes for both your sticks and buttons. Pretty much everything one should need for MOBAs, FPSs, and various other game types. It's easily activated through the Sugar Console while in a game that you want screen mappings for, and it'll save per title. You also have RAM usage and temps on at all times, as well as a brightness slider, and while Fusion works on few apps at the moment, using both screens at once works at all times. We won't spend a whole lot of time here because it's very simple. It's almost like having two Android devices in one. You'll have your main screen, which works exactly as you would expect any other Android phone, tablet, or handheld. The second screen, in this case the little square, is a standby second instance of Android. On that specific instance, you don't have desktop icons or widgets. You can open your app drawer and boot any of them, including the app from the upper screen, which will move it down. That may reset some apps, so that's something to keep in mind. What you cannot do on the second screens are swipe motions, none of them, not the notification bar, not the navigation triplets button, none. So how do you back out? Simple. You make sure to touch that screen first, and then you hold your back buttons for a few seconds. The key advice to remember is if you touch your second screen, it takes priority over your controls. So if you're playing a game on the main screen and trying to back out on the second, you first have to click the second screen, back out, and then click on the first and continue your game like nothing happened. It's easy to master, pretty much frictionless, but may take a few mistakes to get yourself dialed in. And talking about those screens, while in 2DS mode, you've got an 18:9 6.01 inch OLED up top and an 8:7 3.92 inch OLED down low. Both use DC dimming, both have 10 points multi-touch, both reach up to 450 nits, and both hit 100% sRGB and color gamut. Each capped at 60 Hz, wish it had 120 Hz, but oh well. They're sharp, vibrant, and dim all the way down when needed, but if it's not enough, you can activate the extra dim feature to crank it down even more. They also get plenty bright for outdoor use, and when using both at once, you finally get your dream DS/3DS paired with two glorious OLEDs. I can't stress this enough. Playing the first stages of Super Mario 3D Land made me want to replay it because while 3D isn't there, the response time, sharpness, and colors of those screens made me feel like I'm truly playing a remaster of those somehow now retro classics. There is a super small shift in hue only when looking at pure white. When singling out colors, I couldn't discern a difference between the two, proving how much effort went into calibrating these panels. Genuinely, this is stellar work from the engineers at ONEXPlayer. Great job. But an equally important component that most would agree is the speakers. Speakers change orientation depending on how you're holding it, top front firing or bottom front firing, with the keyword being front. It'll always point at you. Another clever design that pays off. Audio is better than average, it gets loud enough. For those with acute hearing, you'll notice the speakers do not get overdriven. They're carefully balanced to not get past that limit. The mids and highs are extremely well executed, and the lows, considering the size, still comes through. The humph is missing, but no low hertz are choked either. Something else that's missing, a 3.5mm jack, but if one device had to justify getting rid of it, it's definitely the one. No need to convince me that it was necessary to push the engineering to the next level. Anyway, here's an audio sample. Quick pause. If you're enjoying the review, hit that subscribe button with the bell and consider hitting the like button. My promise to you is to continue delivering more takes and deep dives to help you hone in on your gaming tech needs. Let's get into numbers. We have Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.3 on board, from 12 to 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5X up to 8533 megabits per second, and between 256 and 512 gigabytes of UFS 4.0 storage. And of course, the Snapdragon G3 Gen 3, the star of the show and brand new kid on the block. You're looking at a GPU roughly matching the 8 Elite and a CPU slightly superior to 8 Gen 3, but close enough that I'd use that as a reference. Don't care for numbers? Translation instead? This thing's got muscles. For most of your gaming needs, it's flagship territory, which means that in most situations, you'll leave that chip on energy and power efficient, and you'll still fly through those performances. The only area in which you may have the Snapdragon 8 Elite overtake you is when doing x86 emulation with apps such as GameHub, which, to address emulation as a whole, given my limited time with the device, I couldn't spend too much time benchmarking, but the takeaway is simple. Beyond PC emulation, so Switch 1, Wii U, PS2, PS3, and so on, if there's an app with the compatibility for it, it can do it. And it's no different with native games. And because you have the pick of the litter between screens, it's also extremely adaptable. This thing is a beast at playing games, any type. Emulation or not, widescreen or not, and yes, you can play 2 games at once. Why would you do that, you ask? Well, to never worry about loading ever again. Absolute overkill, but you can. I'm more watch a movie while gaming kind of guy, but you do you. Thermals are also better than expected, and like gaming, it floats between 28 to 35 Celsius degrees. Under full load, I peaked at 64 Celsius, but never felt it in the hands, and that was also without ever using the integrated fans. Using the fans, 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme Stress Test showed temps never getting past 35 Celsius degrees, which is what gave it that impressive 86.2 stability. Without the fans, 64% stability, so safe to say this is not a chip you'll want to passively cool during high intensity, but the fans didn't bother me at all, probably because they sit behind the console. They sound faint at 100%, great implementation overall. Before we wrap this up, let's talk battery. I was also limited in time to test thoroughly, so I'll defer to ONEXplayer's information shared on Discord. It's packing a 3.85 volt, 5600 mAh cell. In a game like Honor of Kings, you'll get around 5 hours of use. It's your typical Android, amazingly optimized playtime, better than a PC handheld, no doubt. In the box, you'll find your ONEXSUGAR with a color matching 45 watt charging brick. With it, you should be able to reach 0 to 50% in 35 minutes and 0 to 100 in more or less 2.5 hours with adjusted charging speeds to maintain battery life over long duration. Okay, let's wrap this up. Pros: the unique dual screen form factor, excellent OLED panels, Hall effect sticks, great native Android performance, and surprisingly good ergonomics, highly customizable software, and though not perfect, great controls overall. And now for the cons. The price may seem high for some. 60 Hz only, no high refresh rate. The weight and screens all-around approach might turn off people looking for ultra portable, or it will at least warrant an accessory. Here's one they showed on Discord. And will apps get added to Fusion over time, because right now they're not user addressable? And lastly, well, no 3.5mm jack. So, is the ONEXSUGAR just a cool idea or a legit option? Honestly, both. It's experimental, but not unfinished. And for folks who love Android gaming, multitasking, emulation, or just having the weirdest console in the room, this one delivers in 360 degrees. It's not just going to be the most versatile handheld ever, it'll also be the strongest Android-based dedicated gaming machine alongside the iNeo Pocket S2. No compromises rings truer in ONEXplayer's solution than any other one I've seen before it. There's nothing like it on the market, and if I was a betting man, I'd say the only device to follow up the ONEXSUGAR, if ever there is one, is gonna have to be the ONEXSUGAR 2, if ever that is, because holding this thing, the efforts are simply undeniable. It screams at you for all the considerations one had to make to even birth something this unique. In the spirit of coming full circle, this may be the child of a mad scientist, but it's one that has a place in the world, one I prefer not to do without now that I've got to experience the genius that went into the very first Android gaming handheld made by ONEXplayer. Absolute overkill for amazing 3DS emulation, but thankfully it'll also do a killer job at just about everything else. And on that, you can mark my words. Thanks for watching. You know what to do if you enjoyed the review. I'm Clef, this is GameTech Talk, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.